is over.
All right, everyone, we are here with another Insiders interview, and welcome to this. And I want to thank our guest today. His name is Fowl. We have Fowl with us today. He has a wrestling channel on Twitter, also has a YouTube as well. And Fowl, welcome to our show today, man. We really appreciate you joining us.
Hey Joe, hey Jeff. Joe, thanks so much. We've just had like a really good pre-chat for like quite a long time actually.
We did.
It's what happens when people have me on this show. But no, it's really nice. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really grateful. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely, no problem, man, no problem. Well, I guess the first thing I want to ask you about is obviously I love the name. The name is definitely unique. Where did you get your start, and when did you start doing all this? I know you do some watch-alongs, some streams, and things like that in wrestling. So when did you get started with all this stuff?
So it's a very long story, and I'm going to snip it down a little bit because I think otherwise, yeah, I'll snip it down, but I'll give you the highlights. So I started in 2016, March of 2016. The YouTube channel was officially started. I made my first, sorry, no, the YouTube channel, yeah, no, it was started in 2016, May. So March even. Start that again. Started in March of 2016. And I made a few videos. So I made 2 videos. First one did all right. Then the second one got 20,000 views in 12 hours. So it did all right. And then the third one is now sitting at about 1.5 million views. So it did all right. But the first thing that I want to say to everyone, and I said this in the pre-chat, is the numbers don't mean anything. It's for me, it's just to show where I've come from. So in 2016, that's what I did, a YouTube channel. Some stuff happened in my life, end of a relationship, and I still had Fowl. So Fowl became kind of a vessel for me to be able to deal with a lot of the stuff that was going on. And in 2016, I started on Periscope, which is like a live streaming thing. Everyone knows about Periscope now. But in 2016, Fowl Original was on there, and I did a live show for like 6-7 hours at a time because I had nothing else to do. And I kind of just went with it. The wrestling side nothing was really happening in 2016. I was kind of away from it as well. But I continued with Fowl, did a few podcasts. On the Periscope shows, I started up a show called 7 Minutes in Hell, which was because I was having a really bad time. And social media, live streaming and everything was there to kind of really help me to deal with a lot of that. So I'd come home, get really angry, do 7-minute show, and then I would cut that into a podcast, put it out on YouTube with some animation using something called Adobe Character Animator. So it was the little fowl face, it would move its lips and stuff, and I produced one of those every night, put them out on YouTube, loads of different topics, stuff like I spoke about being Muslim, being Asian at the time, not practicing, but a lot of it was in 2016, just like today, there were a lot of people that were being marginalized for stuff, and I wanted to speak out about it. Didn't really have a large platform, and kind of went and got a real life job. Went off, started working within IT. Up until this point, I'd worked in bars, restaurants and stuff. I used to run a bar at a cricket club, quite a big cricket club actually here in the UK, in the members bar. And that's what I did for about 6-7 years within catering. And it's a very hard job. During this time, like I know that if I was working in that particular industry, it would have been very hard. But kind of skipping ahead a little bit, 2018, I've got a good job-ish, regular job, 9 to 5, I'm still doing foul stuff in the background, and wrestling rears its ugly head again. I get interested in wrestling again because of the Elite. They got me interested again, like really interested. I was back in, like fully back in. Up until that point, I've been dipping in and out, and I started watching other kinds of wrestling. In 2018, I did a watch along, which I was telling you guys earlier on. I did it on my phone on YouTube. The whole Royal Rumble, include the pre-show, holding my phone like in front of my face. And that did really well. I think that did like 20,000 views or something on my little YouTube channel. So I kind of wanted to speak to other wrestling fans, and that took me to Wrestling Twitter. And that's kind of where we're at now. But when I got onto Wrestling Twitter, it was 2018. It was a different place back then. And there weren't a lot of people kind of really fighting as much as they are now. So you were able to have like really good conversations on Wrestling Twitter. And from that, I kind of got in touch with a lot of the wrestling podcasts that were happening. And Wrestling Twitter was very welcoming to me, even though I'm sure I bugged the hell out of a lot of people, like getting involved in some very stupid conversations just because I wanted to be there. I wanted to shout out that I was here. And then at the beginning of January 2019, I reached a few goals that I wanted to, which was I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Up until that point, obviously the stuff had happened with Logan Paul and all that, and demonetization had happened, and I was officially there. I'd made some really good friends on Wrestling Twitter who helped me to get to that point. We did a live roundtable for an NXT UK show, and it was absolutely one of the best nights of my life. Like, it truly was. And something special happened that night. Like, we all kind of felt it. And I'd hit 10,000 followers on Twitter, so I could have my pro wrestling tee store. Again, as I said, the numbers don't really matter, because after that point, the numbers don't matter. I'd hit the goals that I wanted to. And then I kind of started trying to have fun. The podcast came from me playing around with live video from my Periscope days and from all the watch-alongs. And I kind of slapped together an hour-long show, which started after the WrestleMania in 2019. First episode of the Weekly Wrestling Recap went out on that Monday. First episode got like 20,000 views because for some reason, like, it was the night after WrestleMania. No one was doing live video back then as much as they are now. So it somehow picked up that. And since then, I've been doing it weekly. First, it was every 2 weeks. There's so many other things I'm doing as well, and I'm only really scratching the surface. I've recently started a Patreon doing video edits of weird stuff, because why not? And for me, it's all about, like, this year, I did say this to you guys as well, but this year I quit my job in January, February, just before all this happened. And I wanted to do this full time. I'm at the point now where I kind of am, like very, very, very close to the point where I can make that jump now, like fully. And I'm starting a radio network, podcast network tomorrow. So right now, I'm in the eye of the storm of what I'm up to.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Yeah, you've definitely got a lot going on. Exciting stuff. I love the story. You know, coming from where you did, and you know, look, I can see a little bit of that with what we're doing as well, and how things have changed. I know how, you know, you mentioned how you stepped away from wrestling. We kind of did the same, Jeff and I, for different reasons. But, you know, it just got to the point where we did step away from it a little bit. So with all that said, well, I guess I'll ask you this, and from the very beginnings of it, how long have you been a fan of wrestling? Were you always a fan, like child, you know, from child up to adult? How long have you been a fan of wrestling?
Yeah, so like literally like ages 3 and above. Yeah, like I was like, I'd say to everyone, WCW was my first introduction into professional wrestling. And so we're talking about late 80s WCW mixed in with a little bit of late 80s WWF that I would have seen on tape. So let's say 1989 onwards.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, well, that's a great time to get into WCW for sure.
Absolutely.
That was when you had all the big stuff happening and the wars with Raw. So awesome. Who are some of your favorite athletes to watch? Did you have a favorite wrestler as you grew up through it, or anybody that you're keeping your eye on now?
Like obviously when I was younger, so this is when I was a lot younger, it was all about the cartoony kind of gimmicky kind of guys.
Yep.
So I was a big Ultimate Warrior fan when I was a kid.
Okay.
Like because you know, if you're a kid, how can you not be?
Oh,
And you know, he is an action figure come to life. Like he is literally an action figure come to life. And also within that, like now, when as I got a little bit older, Rob Van Dam, massive fan of Rob Van Dam.
Wow, okay.
And also people like Samoa Joe. Like I'm a bit of a chubby guy, so like when I see someone like Samoa Joe, that's like you can do it. Like don't worry, you can do it, Fowl. Don't worry about it. Like just put in a bit more effort. And like Cena, I was a big Cena mark as a kid. AJ Styles, like
Yes.
I was watching TNA from the first Asylum show, and like that first ever pay-per-view. I've got a video which I'm actually releasing. I'm just finishing editing it. It's like a 45-minute love letter to that first episode. It's going to go out on YouTube real soon.
Awesome.
Like that. I'm like, I've watched a lot of wrestling, and I always try to keep in touch with it. But yeah, those are kind of my guys from those days.
Awesome. Very cool. Have you been to any live shows? And if so, memorable live show that you've attended?
So when I was younger, I went to for one of my birthdays. My mom took me and my little brother to Disney World. So we went to Disney World, Florida. So I don't like dating myself, but this was in 1996.
Okay.
So this was in the autumn of '96. So we're talking about like Halloween time. And was it 96? Yes, it was 96. It was Halloween 96. And I went to MGM Studios, and back then they were running the house shows for WCW in the MGM Disney studio thing. So my mom, who's taken us to Disney World, like we're from the UK, single parent family, don't have a lot of money. You know, this is like once in a lifetime trip. And I'm like, no, let's not watch the Main Street Parade that everyone's going to ask us about. Let's go watch a WCW house show. They're happening at the same time. Like, when we went to go and get the ticket, like, the lady was like, she looked at my mom, and then she looked at me, and she just had this, like, look of knowing understanding with her, like, well, you know, what can we do with it? But, luckily, I didn't, like, my mom didn't know. They run the Main Street Parade, like, every hour, so, like, whatever. But yeah, and at that show, I saw Johnny B. Bad, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
who else did I see? There were some women's wrestlers. I just don't know who they were. But like my mom took, I'm talking like 5 photo albums worth of photos from that show because she just decided that I needed to have like a flickbook version of the whole event. And it was really good. Like that was awesome. And I've been to, I went to WWE RAW when it did its first ever taping here in the United Kingdom, in Birmingham, where I'm from. Also saw SmackDown. So that SmackDown was the SmackDown where Eddie turned heel on Ray in their storyline. They had that Fatal 4-Way match, and he kind of just dipped, like in the Fatal 4-Way. That happened then. Also, it was during the time that the Edge Lita stuff was happening in real life. So a very memorable point in that show was quite a young girl with like dressed like a Hardy running up to me going like, when Edge comes out, you need to start chanting, "We want Matt." And I was like, all right, kid, sure. And the whole crowd are doing it. Like she was like dedicated. You could see she was like a super Hardy fan, and she was just running around the whole audience, like telling people to do it. And I saw NXT UK last year, So about February time, they came to Coventry, and it was the debut of Volta. Well, not his debut, but his first like in-ring appearance, challenging Pete Dunne. So
Wow.
that was pretty cool. Other than that, I'm just trying to think if there's any other. I went to a random Raw house show as well a few years before then, and I saw Ric Flair's bum. I didn't want to see it, but I saw it. He pulled it down. I can remember just like really good seats, yeah, until he pulls his pants down. Jeez.
Oh man, that's great. That's great. Well, that's awesome. You've been to some pretty cool live shows. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's great memories. I haven't been to one in a while. My father used to take me to a lot when I was a kid. Local house shows and stuff like that. And I know I tell this story a lot, but I got to meet Andre the Giant when I was about 8 years old.
Wow.
Which was, it was absolutely amazing. Wish that the time was different and we had cell phone, number one, and we had pen and paper, number two. Unfortunately, it just was kind of on his way out of the little tiny gym that we went to see it close to where I live, and kind of came out, and my father just kind of stopped him and said, "Oh, my son's a big fan." And then he looked down and he kind of just patted me on the top of my head and just asked me how old I was. And I told him, and then obviously he just said, "Well, thank you for coming," and then said goodbye and walked away. So that was pretty amazing.
Class act, man. That's a class act as well, yeah.
Yes. It was something like, we were talking again before the show, something I'll never forget. Just an amazing memory. And I'm hoping to get to another one. They're supposed to have some stuff up my way. We'll see. Obviously, with everything that's going on, we have no idea how they're going to do any of that stuff going forward. So, well, I'll ask you this then. I know you do a lot of stuff with AEW now. We know AEW is a relatively new promotion now. I can kind of see from your background in with TNT and stuff like that, and Nitro and WCW, why the transition probably happened. But so tell everybody what got you excited, what got you into AEW and doing the live streams for AEW.
So yeah. Oh, like AEW are they're so welcome. Like, they're such a welcome addition to wrestling. I'm so happy they're here. It truly, like, as I said, during my kind of like YouTube kind of journey, I fell in love with being the elite. I fell in love with these guys that were out there trying to make a name for themselves outside of the big machine. And I was there with them for like everything, when they invaded. Like, a lot of people will remember like bits of what happened in the run up to the beginning of All Elite Wrestling, but there was a particular time when Cody went to Raw, and he took the Bucks with him, he took like Brandy with him, and they invaded Raw, and they took like a tank, and they did the whole thing. And then they got sued by the WWE for a cease and desist for using the too sweet gesture. And I remember at that exact point, it was that moment, I was like, these guys they're gonna do something really big, because they didn't just take it like lying down. They were like, okay, cool. Like, you've censored us. We're going to make a mockery out of all of this. And by doing so, it's very similar. And I say this to a lot of people. It's almost like the story of the WWE and WCW, but just turned on its head. There's a brand new promotion that's come in with a focus on young stars, a lot of money, a lot of really, fans that are desperate for this kind of product. They're there to shake up the status quo. They take bits of what has worked before and they provide an alternative. And then there's another company that's a lumbering company with loads of people on its roster, contracts that are ridiculous, and, loads of money being spent on absolutely nothing. And then there's another little company doing it with like a 1/10 of their budget. And, like the NWA, which you guys, are a major part of that kind of community as well. Like, NWA, I remember seeing this from Billy Corgan, and he was like, what company out there without a billionaire and a massive budget and TV has made such a splash as as AEW. AEW, to me, has always been the future of what the business should be. It's the it's the natural evolution. It's the kind of show that you can watch with tongue in cheek, but you can watch it without having to explain it to people. Like within the beginnings of AEW, well, way back when All Out happened, All In happened, even when All In happened, there was a particular segment in the show which is I call it the WWE segment of the show, and it was Adam Page beating Joey Janela. And afterwards, there was a storyline going along in Being the Elite, which is a companion YouTube show, which if you guys aren't watching, definitely check it out. It's hilarious every single week. In the companion show, Adam Page had killed Joey Ryan. So for the people watching the show, the YouTube show, this is a massive payoff to a 6-month-long story. To everyone else watching at home, this was a bunch of inflatable phalluses. Let's use the word phalluses. Let's keep it PG. Walking along. They were called something druids, and they and like the Undertaker's minions, they came and resurrected Joey Ryan.
Oh man!
Yeah. Now
I remember that. I remember that.
And like you look at it, and I am sitting there trying to explain to someone that this is the future of professional wrestling, and then that happens, and I'm like, well, this is going to be a bit of a rough start, isn't it? Like, but at the same time, they did something that a lot of people didn't realize is, as a fan of Being the Elite, I was like, this is amazing. But to explain it to everyone else in the room, you can't. And I think with AEW is, especially over here in the UK, I have never seen the WWE desperately try to get onto so many different like platforms and channels as when AEW existed. So like to put it into context, over here in the United Kingdom, like obviously in the United States, you guys get Raw, SmackDown, AEW to a certain extent as well, all on like basic cable. So you pay a fee and you get all these shows. Over here in the United Kingdom, you have to pay a lot more, you used to anyway, to get the Sky Sports channels, to watch Raw, SmackDown. It wasn't NXT all the time, but all the bits and the pay-per-views are on top. Or you get the network and you wait 30 days. Or you just watch the pay-per-views anyway because Raw, SmackDown's too long anyway. Anyway, the terrestrial channels over here, so stuff like networks like what would be Fox, ABC, CBS, all those kind of places, they don't show wrestling, because we had WWE in 2000, and Mae Young had a wardrobe malfunction, if we all remember from that Royal Rumble, and because of that, wrestling has been a bit of a hard sell on network TV over here, and now it's kind of a bit different. ITV have stepped forwards and picked up AEW, ITV being the Fox, but they put it on a bit of a weird slot. They've cut it. They haven't really treated it that well because, AEW is a very violent show, so they've kind of put it onto a secondary channel. The ratings are doing all right, but I think the major thing that's happened is Fight TV stepped in to pick up the live rights for it. And by doing so, they've probably increased the people that are watching it live every single week. Because with AEW, for example, we get to see all the stuff in the ad breaks that you guys don't get. So when you go to ad, the cameras are still rolling, stuff's still happening, and you get those weird segments like when Jericho found a hot dog and he was talking about that wiener and it went like mini viral because everyone's like, where is this from? And it's like from the Fight stream, like just watch it on Fight. And they've been instrumental at the pay-per-views as well. I don't know what it is about AEW, but they're the kind of wrestling that I miss. Like I always say, like NWA is, for me, the way I kind of described it was like it had a feeling of familiarity of something I'd never seen before. And because I didn't have all the frames of references for, you know, like American TV shows in that kind of way, in like local TV and how cable worked. But with AEW, everything that happens, like I can relate to it in some way, and I like it. Like I genuinely like the show, and there's a lot of wrestling you have to kind of sit through, and I don't feel like that with AEW. It's just a really, like, I think it's just a very strange like thing to have happened. All the stars aligning, and I think that it's a great place for people to remember that professional wrestling is for the people, and to give them a bit of a chance to have a say, because we're seeing all these things that AEW did instinctively being done by the WWE, not because they probably didn't know what to do. It's just they were like, once we do it, we've set the precedent. And the WWE, especially in this empty era attitude, empty arena era even, the WWE are looking a lot cheaper than AEW every single week. Like, I just watched part of Raw the other day in the plexiglass. I was just like, this is so weird. Like, I feel like I'm watching an episode of The Prisoner, like, every single time, yeah, and the stupid bubbles going around. I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't understand. Like, at some point, are they gonna like start like spraying like water onto them? Or, like, do they have to go clean them after everything? What happens if someone like touches the other side? Do they have to, like, I don't understand, like, just the logistics of the whole thing. I'm like, it's so weird. And making your wrestler stand out there for 10 hours, I'm like, that is, at least you're getting, you know, on Raw and SmackDown if you're from NXT. But if your job is just to stand there for 10 hours, like, there's just, it's just, I think the comparisons to both of the shows, so the WWE and AEW, are apt so many times. And to see AEW beating Raw in the ratings some weeks, I'm like, wow, it's a crazy thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the plexiglass is, yeah, it kind of, I mean, look, I think they knew they kind of had to do something with the wrestlers and the fans there, because AEW had been doing it for a while and it seemed to be succeeding there. So I think they knew they had to do that. The plexiglass thing, honestly, I think that's going to be a thing. And I think they got it from us probably with ice hockey, because when you go see ice hockey here, the very bottom has protective plexiglass all around the arena. So obviously the puck doesn't go flying in and hit fans. But I think I kind of think that's maybe where they got that from a little bit. But yeah, I agree with your points that the fact that those poor people have to stand for that entire time. Yeah, I kind of really didn't get that. I'm like, there's seats there. Why can't they sit? So, yeah, I completely get you. And your comparisons with NWA, Jeff and I both of us are very impressed with what they've done. The fact that they're on YouTube and not on a regular TV channel out there or anything like that, really brought me back to old style Saturday morning wrestling from when I was a kid. And obviously I show my age every time I say that. But and then now AEW, yes, I've loved what I've seen so far. We just got done with a show where we talked about their pay-per-view, which I was really impressed by. I know Jeff was too. So instead of me hogging all of the time here in the interview, Jeff, I'm sure you've got questions for Fowl. So shoot, man, go ahead and ask away.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the pay-per-view, because that's actually where I wanted to go to. I wanted to get your thoughts. I thought the whole thing was good, aside from maybe I could have probably done without Dustin and Sean Spears. It wasn't bad, but it was just in there. But I absolutely loved the Stadium Stampede match. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that match. And then the second part of that is, what do you think about the criticism that the match has gotten, especially from someone like Jim Cornette?
So one, I love the Stadium Stampede match. Like, that's my kind of stuff right there. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about AEW having, you know, just getting it. And I I really love them because I think that they're exactly what we need right now. And like that particular match, it's, you know, it's, if you're in with that particular kind of brand, I guess, like if you like AEW anyway, you like them to take those risks. And I'm a big fan of cinematic matches. The Boneyard match from this match, one of my favorite things of all time. The Boneyard match is basically what started me doing my video edits, because I was like, this is Renegade. Like, this whole thing is the TV show Renegade right now. I'm watching it like in the WWE. And with that, like, the actual Stadium Stampede was great. The pay-per-view overall, I've got just as you were kind of saying, the Shawn Spears, Dustin Rhodes. I think the problem with AEW at the moment is that we're getting really high caliber stuff every single week, and it's almost like the NXT kind of problem. It's like when you're getting such good quality every single week, it makes the pay-per-view feel a little less special, in my opinion. Like, it just, only because every single week on Dynamite they'd ended on the outside on that field, we know they're at Daly's place, it just starts to feel a bit samey. However, that match was really well put together. The ideas in it were great. The little segments, like the bit when Paige and Omega share the milk and the whiskey, I absolutely loved that. Everything with Matt Hardy going, the matter-of-fact thing, like little nuances to that. Like if you look at the actual image on screen, Matt fact are the biggest things, but obviously just in case there's any kind of issue with legality later on, it's become matter of fact. And I remember just looking at it, and there's just so many little nuances to that, and I love getting to see that on a bigger stage. Now the second part of that, so I was reading the ratings for Double or Nothing, and there was something very peculiar within the rating system, and it's the, and this is from Wrestling Observer Radio, so these are the Meltzer ratings, and there's like an asterisk and something in brackets which says Meltzer has decided that he will not rate any of the cinematic matches as they're heavily edited and it doesn't really show technique or skill. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like that's a fair thing to say, because you're not looking at the particular skills of that person. It's a bit unfair, and maybe he'll start a new scale up and it'll work it out. Like Cornette. Oh, Cornette. Like, you know, I was really, really lucky this year, start of this year, to be on the media call for NWA Hard Times, and got to ask Nick Aldis a question about gladiators, because I'm a British fool. But I got to ask him like what gladiators do we have and stuff. He seemed to appreciate the question. But I remember like Cornette, obviously at the time, this is January 2020. So stuff had just happened, remarks were made at his Cornette, and that was all happening. And I can remember having this like sinking feeling in my stomach, like the second it happened. I was like, oh no, he's ruined it. I was like, Cornette's ruined it, hasn't he? Like, he's ruined this whole thing. Like, because I don't feel like there's any way to kind of walk back from that. Some reason Jim Cornette is made of Teflon. No, I don't understand it. So like he just keeps on going. So I'm going to use him as the example. There's a lot of like anger and passion behind people not liking cinematic wrestling. A lot of that seems to be from people who have a very, very specific financial interest in that opinion being something that's out there. And I don't agree with those people, because I feel like with a Cornette, he needs to not like that. That's the Cornette brand. Like, he might have been sat there loving the show, laughing at it, or like slapping his knee, I'm assuming, because that's like that's what I assume Cornette does every time he finds something funny. And then like, and laughing at it, and then directly afterwards going, I'm going to show those guys. Oh, I hated it so much. It was the worst thing ever. He's killing the business. Like, he's just, like, I understand. Like, I do understand people not liking something like the Stadium Stampede. I can get it. Putting it at the end was probably the right idea, because if you put that in the middle, it would have taken away from for a really, really good main event, which was, of course, Mr. Brody Lee going up against John Moxley, which was a fantastic match. But it's just AEW, isn't it? Like, there were people out there, like Cornette hated the unsanctioned match between Moxley and Omega, and it's like their death match kind of match that they had, and people won't like certain things, and that's fine. But I think that sometimes there should be a bit of respect, like, for the fact that, especially right now, that's like one of the best things you could put on a match, which is fun. It's not for anything. Like, the story in AEW between the two factions, the Inner Circle and Elite, is kind of one more of a jockeying for position, more of a Saturday morning cartoon, you know, Cobra versus like G.I. Joe, than they are going to actually murder each other. And like, so it means that you can have those fun matches within quite serious stories. You know, like within AEW at the moment, as you know, Jeff, the story is that Matt Hardy's doing a part of this to look like to kind of avenge the loss of Vanguard 1. And it's like, if you speak to people about the fact that Matt Hardy is really, really sad that his drone was smashed to pieces, and then he during a match turned into 3 different versions of himself, threw someone into a bell, tied him to a chair of wheels, and then put him into water, and then on commentary, they're making sense of it. Oh, well, I guess those waters must be the same waters from the Lake of Reincarnation. It's stuff like that made me love that match. Hearing, like, JR trying to make sense of it all, it's stuff like that is so impressive, and people kind of need to at least give them a little bit of a chance. Wrestling has changed. It's evolved. Like, if you tell someone about something like NWA, even 2 years ago, think about where the NWA was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, compared to where it is now. Like, it's because they evolved. It's because they changed, because they did something different, because they didn't follow everyone else. They made their own path. And I think that's what AEW have done. Yeah, there's a lot of comparisons between WCW, and a lot of people would have looked. I know that there was a lot of talk in some of the group chats that I'm in, and also all over Twitter, that, oh, that was just WCW light. Yes, but it was the best parts of WCW light. So that's kind of my thing. And I'm an old WCW fan, so maybe that's where the bias comes in. But, like, I love what they're doing. The Mike Tyson stuff, but everything else, I love it.
Yeah, me being a WCW fan, I mean, I grew up watching NWA, Jim Crockett promotions, and WCW. That was me being in the South, growing up here in the South. That was what I saw. So, when you fast forward and you look at what WCW was doing in the Nitro days and all of that, yeah, you can definitely see the comparisons. But like you said, it's like the best parts of it. And that's why, I mean, there are going to be things on every show that you may say, that I could have probably done without that. But when the overall product is just brilliant, and you see that it seems like everyone there is just on the same page, and they're all, going towards that same goal. That's really brilliant to see. So yeah, I get those comparisons. You said you didn't really like the Tyson stuff. What about the Tyson stuff you're kind of out on?
It's like, I don't have no problem with, like, Tyson being involved in it, like, and the continuation of the story with Jericho, however tenuous it is, because Jericho just makes an angle out of everything, and I love him for it. And if anyone out there could make a good go of it, it's Jericho. It just feels unneeded. like it didn't feel needed. Or maybe it doesn't feel earned. Maybe that's what it is. It doesn't. There's just a vibe. Like I understand what it's there for. I understand the statement that it's making as well, because like the reason I say this is I saw this, like I'm on Twitter all the time. Like I got nothing better to do. So I'm on Twitter all the time. So people will know if you're on Twitter that when a tweet gets sent out, sometimes people delete it immediately. But when it's out there, when it's on your phone, you can still see it. And then sometimes people will be able to retweet it. When you go to open it, though, it will say failed to load tweet. So there was a very particular tweet I saw from the WWE Fox account. And they are, can I just say, one of the most amazing accounts, brand accounts out there. They're so good.
Yeah.
And like they put out a message, which was a video of Mike Tyson kind of like preparing and like punching a speed bag and stuff. And oh my God, he's scary fast still. But he was doing all this speed bag stuff. And then it said, well, I guess anyone could challenge for the 24/7 championship against Rob Gronkowski on ESPN, like Mike Tyson here. And like there's a video of him and it's all a fish. And then like a few hours later, it's just gone. And I remember like no one's really spoke about this. It's just gone. Because obviously a few hours later, it was announced that he would be presenting the TNT Championship. So I remember thinking, this is more of a contest between two company heads going like, hey, I got Tyson, and look, he's in fighting shape. And we're talking about repeating the past. Like, yes, it did bring some mainstream attention immediately. Of course it did. But I'm just not down for Tyson beating Chris Jericho in the middle of the ring. Like, I'm just not down for it. Like, that's the only thing I see coming from it. Or maybe he joins the Inner Circle. Maybe that's the whole story. Maybe that's it. Yeah. That sounds more like it, though, doesn't it, actually? My God, I've booked it now. Oh, no.
It's a swerve like back in the day with DX.
It is, isn't it? And he's going to be joining the Elite. Oh, he'll join the Elite. He'll take off his T-shirt. Oh, and maybe he'll become Matt Hardy. Maybe he'll take off his suit and he's Matt Hardy underneath. Maybe it was Matt Hardy the whole time. It was Matt Hardy the whole
amazing.
Time.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. So, I mean, that garnered a ton of views, by the way. That video with Tyson was, I think, 1.2 million views or something like that night. So obviously, I mean, it was huge for fans to see. And I guess I have to ask you, I mean, we're going to talk about this on our podcast as well this week, but I mean, obviously there's such competition between them and WWE. So after that, and I don't know how much WWE now you watch, but I will ask, did you see the episode of SmackDown this past Friday? And the whole thing, and I don't know if you saw it or if you read about the thing with Jeff Hardy. And if so, I mean, because I asked our community what they thought about it. It's another thing that seems like it's causing a stir with the wrestling fans, and people are kind of really divided on this, where, they're not sure. They don't know whether or not they think that for me, I kind of found it a little bit a little distasteful, I guess is the right word. I think Jeff agreed with me. So if you saw that, what did you think? I mean, it almost seemed to me like it was a kind of a forced response by WWE to put something out that's going to grab attention from AEW's thing with Tyson.
Like, it felt really tone deaf. Like, that's it, like when the WWE have done some really, really weird things sometimes, and they almost survive on the 24-hour news cycle, in the sense of they'll forget about it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. They'll have forgotten about it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. And you see this happen on many an occasion. Some particular story will come out and the WWE will, in 24 hours, hope everyone's forgotten about it. And more often than not, we've all cancelled the WWE network now officially, so no one actually has network anymore. So, I guess, like, it's this weird thing where, and I use this example from a while ago, and this was after the 7/7 bombings in London. So obviously it was high alert, and there was a particular angle which came out with Muhammad Hassan, and Muhammad Hassan was attacked the Undertaker with hooded, masked figures, and then they kind of took him in what looked like potentially could have been a religious ceremony or a terrorist ceremony, whatever it was. That episode went out in the United Kingdom with a little warning underneath saying, sorry, we know that there's stuff happening, essentially. In the US, I can understand that episode going out because because the thing that happened, SmackDown aired beforehand, but in the UK, there was no excuse. They could have cut the whole segment, but it was more, hey, we've recorded it. It's not a live show. What they're going to do about it? There were complaints over here about that going out. Not massive. And 24-hour news cycle, everyone forgot about it. The Jeff Hardy thing, I have this almost like, and again, gut feeling, that he does it because the WWE sometimes have nothing better to do with him. And he just goes, hey, do you want me to do an angle about me, like, struggling with my demons? And they go, cool. Yeah, cool. Let's do it. Because I've seen almost like it's capitulation for some reason. Like, I don't feel like he was forced into doing it. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that so they came to a story with him and said, hey, we got this idea of you being involved in drunk driving. Because number one, I know people personally that have passed away from being involved with drunk drivers, passengers, and I have a cousin who lives in Pakistan, and he's in a country where if you're injured, like that's the end of your life. Like, you know, and he was knocked down by a car because they weren't wearing seatbelts and stuff. So, and they were drinking. Now, I'm not going to go around and be the police for all jokes. A lot of people found, but that wasn't a joke. A lot of people found the Adam Page storyline similar, but at least in a way, that's been a very long story. If you've been following it along, you can see a man descending into alcoholism, and you can see the point where it's already becoming an issue. With Jeff Hardy, it's almost like it's been played off for laughs. Like, oh, well, and even the actual story, like if you watch the segment, they're like, oh, someone was driving. Who was it? Oh, it must be Matt Hardy. And everyone kind of just immediately agrees, like it must be him because of his previous offenses. Like, it's such a strange message to send out there. And also the tone-deaf nature of having a segment happen outside of the performance center on a day when the whole of the United States is having a lot of issues with police, and you film something earlier in the day when the police look like they may be harassing people or something. Like, it's almost like it was filmed to, as you said, garner that reaction. But I say this so much, and I truly do believe this, like, if you dive into negativity with your content or with stuff like that, if all you're looking for is a negative reaction, if you want to elicit that negative response, and that negative emotional response is the only thing that's keeping you going, you'll start to get to a point when, like, how low is too low? Like, how low is anymore? Like, if someone came to him with that story, I don't see a world in which Jeff Hardy is going to say no. But if he went with that story, that's even sadder. Like, that he feels that's the only thing he has to give to professional wrestling now. Now, for the whole idea of it being used as an angle, it's hard because angles like that, they form part of the trash part of wrestling history, and every single time it happens, you kind of look at it like, you look at it with hindsight and you say that was so bad. I don't want Jeff Hardy to be another statistic. I don't want him to feel that he has to do these things angle wise because he thinks it will garner a response. Like, there's a lot more to Jeff Hardy than his demons and his issues and his past. And I almost feel like angry sometimes that the WWE have focused in on that as part of his whole story because they know it's an easy way to milk money. It's terrible. And like, I feel for Jeff because I know 100% he must be looking out at his brother in AEW and going, I really, really wish I was with you right now. Like, I've got a younger brother, and like, seeing them, like, we used to call the Hardy Boys when we were younger, like, not for any wrestling business, just because similar ages and we like wrestling. But I always like look at that and think, like, if my brother was in a situation when I had like escaped like a job I didn't want to be in, and I had to watch him every week, and the first time I watch him live and maybe I haven't chatted to him, and I see him in what potentially looks like an actual real life car accident, and start thinking, is this real? Is this real? It's just really, really tone deaf for the WWE.
Yeah, I didn't. Again, I watched it. I didn't know what to think, and you know, then a little later on, I saw comments by Matt and by Matt's wife on Twitter. So it came off to me. And again, look, people do things for many, many, many different reasons. And you know, especially on Twitter. You know, you mentioned Twitter earlier. Matt could have certainly, you know, put that tweet out there at that point in time to bring attention, you know, on himself or on AEW. You know, we don't know, but it didn't seem like they were happy with it. And I mean, you know, then there's been news of that there was a falling out between them anyway. So who really knows? But it didn't seem like him nor his wife were happy with the treatment. And I know Jeff had a picture on Instagram afterwards and kind of really looked a little bit downtrodden in the picture. So, yeah, I don't. There are storylines out there that I just don't understand. And like you had said and put it so well, it just doesn't seem like the kind of thing you want Jeff, I'm sorry, to be involved in. The guy's been around for such a long time and been an amazing performer in so many of these ladder matches and TLC matches and things. And, you know, if this is indeed his last stint in WWE, is this what you want to remember him by? And then, yeah, the controversy is whether or not did he really come in and suggest this? Or did he get told to do it? You know, we hear things on, I remember hearing a story with Mark Henry. I listen to Busted Open Radio a lot, and I heard a story with him talking about the Mae Young storyline and saying how, you know, listen, wrestlers just have to do what they're told. And he said, and that's kind of what I did. I went out there and I did what I was told, and I did it to the best of my ability. So, you know, is this something he's being told to do? Again, none of us will know. But, yeah, I tend to agree. Jeff, I know I talked to you about this, and I know you kind of felt similarly about it as well.
Yeah, I just think it's in poor taste. You know, regardless of who came up with it, I just think given the fact that Jeff has struggled with alcohol, and even that, I think that's the part that bothers me the most, because he's had such a documented history with his struggles that, you know, relying on that type of storyline or going to that type of storyline is just it's just poor taste. Even and again, you know, I like Sheamus, I like Jeff. I try to watch everything, all wrestling. But even in the beginning when Jeff was coming back and he had that face off with Sheamus, and Sheamus was saying, you know, some of those things about, you know, just go back to the bottle or something to that effect. Even that was kind of cringe to me, because, you know, you're dealing with someone who, again, is out in the public eye, has had a lot of problems with alcohol. And, you know, I just think that part is troubling enough. And then, Fowl, like you said, on a day where the country, the United States, is, you know, cities are being rioted in, and, you know, there's this friction between the general public and police. That's something where I feel like sometimes WWE just needs to take a step back and say, okay, we get it. We filmed this thing. This is an angle, but maybe we should look at putting this off for a week or a couple weeks, because that part of it was really just, like you said, tone deaf, and I just don't understand. And I know a lot of people say, well, you know, my goodness, think about the Attitude Era. Yes, I was alive and well during that time, and there were some things that happened then that if you look at it now, you're like, I can't believe they put that on TV. And now having everything that we have going on in the world, I just think from the standpoint of putting out a show that you're trying to draw ratings and do all of that stuff, I think you can do that a different way, as opposed to working an angle where you have someone that gets hurt and ends up in the hospital. And I was surprised that WWE actually sent out the word hospital, because they never normally do that. So to have that and then have to see the image of Jeff being hauled off in handcuffs, I just thought it was in poor taste.
It's like there's this thing that they say about Vince McMahon, and like I wonder if it's similar, but there's a lot of wrestlers out there who talk about like you should never dance in front of Vince McMahon, because if you do, like that's your gimmick now. And and so like people like Kozlov, like happened to Kozlov, he became a dancer immediately. That dude from the Oddities, and I wonder if it's the same. If Vince sees you do something and goes, you know what, I'm gonna make that, and I'm gonna do my interpretation of that, like in wrestling style. And he's like, well, I've seen you've been taken away in handcuffs several times, so you obviously know how to do it. So I'm just gonna like film something where we basically do it again. Is that cool? And what are you going to say? No. Otherwise, creative has nothing for you. And if creative has nothing for you, especially at this time, maybe that's when they go, cool, go set out the rest of your contract. No, actually, go sit there. We'll put your contract on freeze for the time you're sitting at home. But it's cool, though. When you come back, you can get into an angle about you being in a car accident, potentially. Like, it's just so weird. I mean, there are a lot of parallels here, my feelings about the Drake Maverick situation, which could be a whole hour, 2 hours to itself, so I won't go into it, but I feel there's a lot of similarities there as well. Like how much of that is kayfabe and how much of that is real. And
yeah, we've spoken a lot about Drake Maverick in the past on this show too, and again, that's another situation where there's no easy look, I don't think there's any good way they come out of that. Because no matter what happens now, if he goes on to win and he quote unquote wins his job back, then that's not a good look. If they find out that this was kayfabe the entire time, and then he put out that video of him crying essentially on Twitter when he lost his job, not a good look at all. And to me, yeah, I mean we've talked about this kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I think there's got to be better creative things you can do with these guys. And if, again, like you said, if there isn't, that's a you problem. And maybe you need to find some better creative people on your team to get this stuff moving in the right direction. I'm sure Vince can go out there and get creative people inside the business that can do a better job. But yeah,
I mean, we've got almost like we've got 8 to 10 people on another show with a handful of the budget and a handful of the time, and they're making a bigger noise and doing it better than a whole team of Hollywood writers. Like, you know, sometimes it does just take those people in the right places, as you kind of said, just people that know what they do, and things will happen. And you're right, that's I've never heard anyone say it like that, but you're right. Like the whole creative problem, it is a problem with creative as opposed to a problem with the wrestlers, because we've seen them when they go out there and do the stuff on their own, they do well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, so where do you see AEW? Where do you see it going in the future. I think, I mean, me and Jeff have asked this from of other people who watch it as well, and we'd love to hear your opinion of where you see this. I mean, I think the future's bright. I think Jeff does as well. I mean, you'll see some things that you think maybe, maybe change up a little bit, but again, it's such a young. It's such a young promotion now from when it started and to where it's come. It seems like it's really going places. And, I was a little skeptical thinking, well, what happens when people like Jericho leave for a bit, because Jericho will go with his band and he won't be there as much. So what happens when some of these guys, kind of leave for a little while? But I don't know. It really seems like they're developing other people pretty well. So where do you see AEW in, I don't know, let's say the next 5 years or so?
Well, the one thing that I always say about AEW over, I think, probably any other company, more so than ever, is that AEW is a wrestling show with an ensemble cast. Like, there isn't anyone there that if you took them out, that you couldn't replace them with someone else, or you couldn't maybe focus on a different story. I mean, kind of looking at Jericho, like if Jericho left for a bit, that would be fine. They could put someone else in there. The Inner Circle could still run stuff. In the next 5 years, obviously they have that 5-year kind of deal with TNT. I think they've taken 1 year of that deal so far, but essentially for the next 5 years, they have a TV slot. They have the network behind them, pretty behind them. And I think that in the next few years, it was supposed to happen this year, and it's a bit of a shame, but they said that Fyter Fest was going to be happening in London. Like, that was the original plans. And that's where I see them going next. Like, they haven't done it yet, but there's a real hunger there now, and there's a hunger for live entertainment and live events. I want them to come to London next. I would love that. I see them teaming with ROH very soon. If you watch Being the Elite, the last episode, they had a British waiter turn up. That British waiter's name was Marty Skull, who turned up at the end of the episode and kind of just went, "Hey, I'm here." Obviously, as head booker of ROH, that's not too big of a dream now that it would ever happen. And I could probably see them doing a lot of stuff in New Japan. From my point of view, I see in the next 5 years, AEW will make inroads to every other promotion in some way, shape, or form, except for the WWE. And in the next 5 years, we will see the WWE probably starting to falter a lot more than they are right now. Because right now, we're in what they call a black swan event. This whole virus is a black swan event. It affects everything. Mm-hmm. This is a black swan event. Both companies are now on equal footing, like exactly on equal footing. When they come out of this, I think AEW will look a hell of a lot stronger than the WWE. They're profitable. They didn't have to cut staff. Their fan base loves them, and they're growing. The future is just limitless for them. Even if the big names leave, I mean, I'm waiting for it, and it hasn't happened yet. And Jericho wasn't that guy. And a lot of people say Jericho was that guy, but I'm waiting for that real big WWE guy to come over, to kind of look at it. I mean, the only name I can think of at the top of my head is Orton. Like, if Orton went, you know what? It looks pretty fun over there. I mean, if you know about Randy Orton, during lockdown, he just went and bought a plane. It was just like, there's an image of him on Instagram. He's like, I just got bored, so I bought a plane. That's the kind of stuff that I feel he'd do. When that happens, and it will happen, when it happens, maybe not Orton, that's when we'll put them we will call them the second biggest company in the world. Like, right now, they're getting there. Like, they're really getting there, though. And I just can't wait to see the ride. Like, this ride for what AEW has done. Like, it is like the true Cinderella story, like rags to riches. It's 4 or 5 guys who said, "Hey, we can do this better," and then went out and did it. Like, that's just a pure motivational story that, it resonates with every single person on the planet. or you've got the story of Vince, guy who bought the company off his dad and ran everyone out of town. Like it's just I just can't wait to see what the next 5 years bring for us. Hopefully, just more New Japan stuff. That's what I'd really, really excited for.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a fun time for fans. It really is. I mean, obviously, if we didn't get this black cloud over us right now, and everything didn't happen that way, but even still, it's a fun time because we're getting to see two, and you know, NWA is another one. Two pretty much brand new companies that are just starting, and you know, I know we talk about this with NWA a lot, but it's the same thing with AEW. And how many times have you been able to? I mean, my goodness, WWE is a very old company, so there's not many people around that can say, "Yeah, I was there when it began," and so yeah, you know, I mean, NWA obviously was there before, but you know, coming back now the way it is and starting over, you know, you can't really say that you are a part of something new, and especially now with the tech generation and with social media and with everything like that. And the things that you can see differently now, to be a part of something that's just starting out and what looks to be really, really amazing, an amazing future. It's really fun. It's a fun thing for fans. It gives them something else to be a part of, instead of having just one choice. And I think that's really where, look, you know, when we, you know, go back to the question of where you started out, and watching it in the late 80s, you know, WCW and in its heyday back then when there were two promotions. I've always said this, and I'm sure maybe Jeff might agree, and you may agree with me as well. It's better when there's more. It's better when there's more. When there's some competition out there that these people would have for WWE, it's better for the fans because it makes both of them better. And I think ultimately, like you had said, WWE is going to have to up their game because look, it's going to get to a point where the fans won't settle. And I know Jeff and I were talking about this too. How long is it going to be until, you know, AEW might say, you know what, we're going to try our luck against SmackDown instead of being on Wednesday. We're going to try our luck against one of your main shows. How long is that going to be? Because that's when, you know, right now, okay, you know, Vince can kind of say, well, look, it's NXT. So we, you know, yeah, well, we like to win. It really doesn't matter. But when they decide to move sometime and they go up against a main show, man, WWE is going to have to step it up.
They're going to have to explain it. I think that's the main thing. Right now, this is when I was talking about the leveling of the playing field. It isn't how many people you've got in the arena. It isn't even how many T-shirts you sell. It isn't even like how many live events you've done because you can't do any. It's literally the ratings, like, and that's the only like thing that people can factor in on. Like, it's the only thing. So, if the ratings start to drop, you can't be like, oh, it's cool. We're going to Saudi Arabia next week and we're going to make a few billion because you can't. So then people start to look at it, and you're right when. I think I always find it very interesting that the WWE decided, hey, like, and I always thought it was so smart. Like, I was looking back, I did a retrospective of AEW with Ditz from Ditz on Wrestling, Ditz and Ant from Ant Won't Stop. And I was looking back at it, and when they went to purchase all of the trademarks, they bought Tuesday night. I forgot about this, but they bought Tuesday Night Dynamite. So it was AEW Dynamite, Tuesday Night Dynamite, and all this stuff. And that was obviously Tony Khan messing with Vince and saying, hey, I'm going up against SmackDown. Obviously not knowing at the time that SmackDown was moving to a Friday. So then Vince goes, aha, I'm going to do it on a Wednesday because I know you're going to go out on a Wednesday. I'm going to put NXT against you, and I'm going to put all my stars on there. And then nothing happens and he starts to lose and he's like, oh no, congratulations to AEW for existing. Like, I loved that. Like, they came out like just after the first few weeks and it's like, congratulations to AEW, like, because they beat them in the ratings. I just thought it was hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. Like, you know, they always say like, I totally agree with you about competition. It's the one thing that I say. I always want there to be more of us, like content creators out there that push the envelope, that do things differently. Because if there's more of us there, like, we can do so much more. We can try something. I spoke to someone the other day, and it's a word that I told him I was going to steal. I'm having a conversation, and he said that he likes to think of what we do as a cooperation. And I was like, oh my God, I'm stealing that, mate. I was like, because it's beautiful, like, and it exactly explains how podcasters and people within like the wrestling community work. Yeah, we're all kind of trying to reach our own goals individually, but there is this feeling of like, let's all help each other and do it together, because there's a cooperation there. But every now and then you'll be like, oh man, that guy's or that girl's like graphic looks a little bit better than mine. I need to up my game, because you wouldn't up it if no one else is trying to kind of one up you. And it's competition and cooperation can live hand in hand. You just got to respect everyone. And if you just treat people like the way you want to be treated, with respect, then you'll end up working with a lot more people than working against them. And that's just true in life as well.
Very
Right?
true. Very true. Absolutely. Well, man, this has been an absolute blast. I can keep you forever.
Yes.
We've been
Yes,
talking
we could.
since one. We're going to have you on at some point again, and go over some other things. But listen, before we go, I know you've got some stuff going on. So can you tell our community about what you've got coming up? I know you said you've got the radio thing starting tomorrow, and let them know about that, and then obviously tell them where they can reach out to you as well.
Sure, thank you. So, hi, I'm Fowl Original. You can find me on Twitter at Fowl_original. I'm also available on Instagram at Fowl Original. You can go to fowloriginal.com to find out things that are happening with that guy, Fowl Original. Now, you'll find me on YouTube. I've got a link tree as well, link.tree/Fowl Original. A lot of the stuff that I do goes out kind of via my Twitter, so please check that out. And yes, tomorrow, this is being recorded on the Sunday night, so in about 5 hours time or 6 hours time, once I finish the episode, Radio Fowl will go live. It's something that I really wanted to try. It's a network that isn't exactly a network, with daily content, with almost daily content every day. I'll get that right one day. And I'm going to be putting out an episode 0, so you can get an idea about me, about kind of what I want to be doing with it, and a rough idea of the week. But as this is probably going to go out after that episode goes out, tomorrow if it's on Monday, I'm unveiling a new show called The Fowl Breakfast Show, which is a light entertainment style parody of like The Breakfast Show, and it's going to be an audio version with a British twist. Tuesdays is going to be Document Tuesday, where you get a documentary audio style. Wednesday's the day off. Thursday is going to be, I'm forgetting because I'm kind of making some of these as we're still doing today. Thursday, it's the weekly wrestling recap that you can that will come up in audio version. You can catch live on YouTube, youtube.com/FowlOriginalWrestling every Wednesday. And then on Friday, some other stuff. And then Saturday is the day that I'm really excited about, which is called Surprise Saturday, which when it happens, you guys will all be very excited, hopefully. And that's going to be every Saturday. I'm not going to tell you what's happening every Saturday. It's just going to appear. And then also, obviously, I'm on youtube.com/FowlOriginalWrestling. I do watch-alongs for AEW Dynamite, starting at 7:45 Eastern every Wednesday. Got a lot of people in the chat. Well, we got enough. We got a cool community in there, and sometimes I get drunk in Fowl's SOS Shots on Stream, where you can pay me to get drunk within moderation. And then on the pay-per-views, obviously, I'm going to be doing one coming up for In Your House, NXT In Your House, and one for Backlash. And also, like, I got a lot coming up, actually. But if you check out radiofowl.com, I'm going to be updating that website over the next week. And yeah, I've got a Patreon as well. If you see my video edits, I mean, if anything, just type Fowl Original to Google and just go to all the things, because I'm the top hit for all the things, so don't worry about it. But yeah, and there's loads of things. That's all the things. I can't think of anything more. I mean, I've taken up enough time as it is. But yeah, like you can reach me on Twitter. My DMs are open. My email's there as well. If you want to get involved in the stuff I'm doing with Radio Fowl, please do get in touch. I'm really, really happy to help people when it comes to their tech and stuff. And if there's a weird question that you think doesn't make sense, please get in touch with me. I'll try and help you if I can, as long as you're not using a Mac, because I'm not a millionaire. But like, then I'll try and help you. Okay, and that's about it.
Awesome. You've got a lot going on, man. Listen, we really appreciate your time today. I know you've got tons of stuff coming up, and we appreciate you being on and just chatting with us a little bit. And thanks for everything. Thanks for all the compliments earlier on in the conversation we had. Again, that was so nice of you to say, and thanks from Jeff as well, I'm sure, about all the compliments you gave on our show and things like that. So we will definitely
take a second. I want to take a second actually to say, and I said this to them beforehand, and I don't know how much of I said it during the recording, but Jeff is doing a fantastic job. Like, from someone that produces video content and audio content himself and hates editing like crazy, this is why I do live stuff. I have to say that I want to give Jeff, like he's pulled together some stuff to get a lot of that going, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate how much work goes into that. And it's hard for people to understand that. So I just wanted to say, yeah, and obviously to yourself, Joe, as well, but Jeff, you know, he puts a lot of work into this show, and it really shows. I just want to say that, and you know, that's what I said beforehand, and I wanted to make sure that people knew that, because starting up 5 weeks in, and you guys are looking really good. Like, I wish my YouTube channel looked like that 5 weeks going in. God damn, I still had like writing on the wall. So, you know.
Well, I'm
Thank
sure
you.
Jeff,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I'm sure he appreciates that. He doesn't get the recognition he deserves. I try to say that as much as I can, but
It's the life of the roadie. It's the life of the roadie.
Yes, right? Oh, man. Well, hey, good luck with everything. I'm sure we're going to be checking out the Radio Fowl as well, and the things that you're doing in the future. And listen, we would love to have you back anytime. Anytime you've got some time, and it doesn't look like you have all that much, but anytime you've got some time coming up in the future, man, get in touch, and we would love to have you back.
Also, I wanted to say thank you to, and again, I don't know, because we've been talking so much, I don't know what's been recorded and not, but I wanted to say thank you to these guys for reaching out, because I didn't make this happen. Let's just say that I didn't make this happen at all. This is all down to them. Like, they went out, they got in touch with me, they did it all. They're the ones that reached out. And for anyone that's listening, if you want to get in touch with someone and you really want them on your show, whatever you're doing and you want them to work with you, reach out to them. You will find that a lot of people are lazy like me and don't make the first move. So do it. You'll be so surprised at who you can get in touch with. So it shows a lot of work, and that's why I'm saying, yeah, like, this whole thing, believe me, I did nothing here. Yeah, I just showed up, and it's great to be able to do that. Like, I'm really, really happy.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate that. And again, thank you for joining us today, and we will talk to you very soon.